Hello NABU, it's Leo again, and I'm happy to announce that I'm releasing the source code to Miner 2049 to the world, or at least all I could recover so far, which is pretty much everything but two source files. One I could recreate, and the other, well, we're going to have to work on recovering. I'm very happy to give a shout out to forums.nabu.ca user Scott Labombard, labomb, for both fixing up the Pac-Man source code and reviewing and building Miner 2049 for me to get another set of eyes on the problem. I started Miner 2049 in February 1984, or at least I was thinking about it. I was coming off a period where I was fixing up other games for release, what I lovingly refer to as janitor duty. NABU had hired a bunch of new people in the fall of 1983. They had gotten their feet wet fixing up games, but now the rubber had hit the road. This also included people like Terry Newcomb, who wrote Flip and Flop with John Allen, and Donna Frum, later Donna Short, who joined the educational developers. Yves Lupien, Ray Tesk, and Nick Pepe were also hired as students, as co-op students. I was paired with Joaquin Fernandez, who had a marvelous mustache at the time, which pretty much looked like a fine-tooth comb. To this day, I'm able to grow the measly list of mustaches, so I was pretty impressed. He was given a cube directly behind me, and we began to design it. While Miner 2049 was written by Big 5 Software, originally for the Atari 400-800, there wasn't a Z80 version for us to port, so we designed it and built it from scratch. Like my work with Ken Shimizu on Roulette, Pac-Man with Laura Schenning, and now Miner 2049er, I worked with Joaquin to divide up the work. I built everything to do with Bonnie Bob, his interaction with everything. I also built the special devices for the different levels, like the transporter, lift, and cannon. We needed a bit more help in the form of a contractor named Pat Allison, who drew the levels using macros provided by Joaquin in Z80 Assembler. The three of us also later worked on probably the most interesting and ambitious NABU title there is, called Manager's Baseball. Pat accomplished the screens by using translucent onion skin graph paper taped over a TV screen running the Atari 800 version of Miner 2049er. He traced all of the elements, then modified the source code macros to put them over in the right positions, and did this over and over again in order to get them exactly right. All in all, it took us about 3 months to recreate Miner 2049 for the NABU PC. It works perfectly, it's very true to the game, and I'm very proud of it. While I did most of the sound for the game, Joaquin wanted to do the My Darling Clementine theme at the beginning, and if you plan to do music in NABU games, he documented it all very nicely in a file called clem.mac. The development machine was a NABU 1100 for almost all the development, save for one update I did to fix a bug. I didn't need to recompile Joaquin's code at that point, and it was the first game I migrated to the NABU PC development system. I actually still have some handwritten notes that are in a notebook entitled Notes Volume 2. In general, I've usually had a notebook associated with any project or employment that I carried around. I've done this for my entire career because it's much easier to write code or draw diagrams on paper for me. I had many notes for Pac-Man in a notebook I haven't been able to locate Volume 1 in yet. I would write code and doodle gamey things in these notebooks, even at home. From my notes, it looks like I started thinking about Miner 2049 in February 1984. I also used to write pseudocode a bit, and it was a skill I picked up at college. Since I wasn't really sure what language I was going to write my code in, it was good to get a bit of an algorithm written closer to English. So if we flip down here, you can just see doodles and notes and little snippets of code. And in this case, I have a things to do list that I had probably in March. Yeah. And some more notes, some code, looks like for transporters. It says in February 23rd, so it wasn't quite March, and some pseudocode for transporters. So I keep all of these notes, and I have it in a notebook. They don't make a lot of sense to anybody but me, but I thought I'd like to show that I kept them after all these years. So the development period for us was February to May 1984. It was released to QA in the beginning of May, and then the final version made it to the cycle in June 1984. The source code has been uploaded to https://github.com/leobinkowski/nabu. I thought it was pretty lucky when I was recovering the source code, since it looked like I actually recovered everything. But it wasn't to be. I'm missing the contents of one file, and I hope to recover it. The source code is arranged in two folders, JF and LB, for Joaquin's initials and mine. You can see where the responsibilities of the game are divvied up. The application is otherwise arranged like a standard NABU application, with an opening menu in open.mac and using standard macro sets like linktab.mho, arith.mro, struct.mro, and common.mro. It was one of the biggest single-segment games we made at 47K when compiled. M80 macro assembler was used in development, and plink was used to link our libraries together. Joaquin and I shared libraries of our code with each other at regular intervals, at some point several times a day. I was planning to upload the code that I had to GitHub, but Scott Labombard graciously offered to take a look at the code for a cleanup and compilation. This is his version. He managed to get the application built and kind of to run, but one of the files in the JF folder, catmap.mac, was not recovered off the floppy completely intact. I'm going to make another attempt at recovering that floppy. Perhaps it will yield a better copy of catmap.mac. I also had to recreate a file in the LB folder called bizdata.mac. This contained the text of the Easter egg, which I removed from the source so that nobody knew where it was. Well, didn't want them to find the Easter egg. So I recreated this with new information because the original file is long gone. And that's in this bizdata.mac right here. I almost forgot. Scott left a note here for updating the sources. So he created a jfdual.sub in the JF directory and an lbdual2.sub for the LB directory in order to build the whole thing. And so if you follow all of the instructions here, and here he describes why he couldn't get the catmap to work, which is kind of cool. We'll figure that out at some other time. But in the meantime, I've also have documentation at lbminer.txt is my documentation for Miner 2049er, and jfminer.txt has Joaquin's Miner 2049er instructions. So that should get you going if you take a look at the source. Because Miner 2049er has 10 different stations or screen layouts and multiple gadgets to interact with, I built a cheat key for QA to be able to test the stations without replaying the whole game. The cheat key is Sim Shift Control L for Leo, while simultaneously holding joystick 1 in the down position. Easier with a friend, but it can be done by one person after a few attempts. After you accomplish that acrobatic, you can press A to J on the keyboard to bring you to a specific station. That's pretty cool. But here is where it is in the code. If you take a look at bob.mac, you will notice that there's a section here that says if bobx is equal to EE hex and bob y is less than or equal to 21 hex, then I increment biz count. And this is basically the top right-hand corner of the screen. So if you want to, and then it sets this thing called biz flag equals true, which I then check when I do the end screen. If the biz flag is true, then it throws this data into the name table and calls the v blank off. In other words, it turns on the screen, and then it sits there with an infinite loop. It jumps to itself. And this is how the Easter egg works. So I'm going to show you how that happens. So I wanted to show you how you get the NABU Easter egg. And in order to do that, I'm going to play a little bit of Miner 2049er so that I can show you what happens here. Now what I have to do is I have to go Sim Shift Control L and bring the joystick down all at the same time. When I do that, that's the cheat key, and it allows me to go to any level now by pressing the letters A to J. I press J, and now I'm going to station 10. So now that I'm at station 10, what I need to do is I need to get 30 tons of explosives. So that I will shoot myself to the top level. I'm going to put myself in the cannon as soon as everybody goes by. Now I got to jump greater than 8 times in this corner. And now all I have to do is die, because the Easter egg actually shows up after I'm finished. So I'll just finish off the last 2 players. And hopefully our Easter egg is going to show up now. There we go. Programmed by Leo Binkowski and Joaquin Fernandez. Screens by Pat Allison. Pat Allison essentially drew the levels, and I'm going to explain how we did that. Yana Chidle probably won't ever see her name in Miner. I don't think she ever did. She was one of the QA people that I was a little bit sweet on. And from Joaquin, Dedicato con mucho amor, Marcia, Jeff, Jill, e Andrea. Marcia is his wife, and Jeff, Jill, and Andrea were her 3 kids. Kind of cool, huh? Anyway, that's how you get the NABU Miner 2049er Easter egg to show up. And that's how the cheat key is done. Sim Shift Control L while holding the joystick down. Well, that's pretty much it for now. To recap, if you want the source code, go to https://github.com/leobinkowski/nabu/tree/main/nabu-miner-2049er. Thanks a lot for listening. This was a lot of fun, and I hope to give you more content very soon.